About 40,000 years ago, just as the sun was breaking over the horizon, a group of hunter-gatherers left their shelter to find food. They moved fast. They moved quiet. Everyone knew the drill. Stay alert. Stay together. Keep your eyes on what matters. Everyone except one kid. He kept falling behind. Not because he was scared. Not because he was scared. Because every few steps, something would catch his eye and he'd just stop. The adults didn't slow down for him. Out there, stopping got you killed. But this kid wasn't looking at predators. He wasn't tracking prey. He was watching the sky shift from deep purple to pink to a kind of burning orange that he'd never quite be able to explain to anyone. He didn't have words for what he was seeing. He didn't need them. He just needed to look. Nobody in that group would have called him curious. They probably would have called him a problem. Too slow, too easily distracted, always the last one through the trees. But something was happening in that kid every time he stopped. Something that would take 40,000 years to fully understand. You probably think of ancient humans as purely practical. Survival mode, 24/7. No time for beauty, no time for wonder. Just find food, don't get eaten, repeat. And honestly, that makes sense on the surface. But here's the thing. The way those adults in the group were using color had nothing to do with aesthetics. They weren't stopping to appreciate a pretty sunrise. They were reading the world like a dashboard. Color was data. Color was the difference between eating and starving, between going home and not going home at all. The kid who kept stopping wasn't wrong to look. He just didn't know yet what he was looking at. The adults in his group had learned it the hard way, the way everything got learned back then, through watching, through failure, through the people who came before them and passed it down. Pale green leaves on a plant could mean it was young, tender, still edible. Bright, vivid colors on a frog, electric blue, yellow, orange, were a warning so clear you didn't need to touch it twice to understand. Berries shifting from green to red were basically a sign that said now. Not yesterday, not tomorrow. Right now, pick them before something else does. Even the sky was part of it. A band of red clouds rolling in late afternoon didn't just mean it was pretty. It meant the weather was about to turn, and you'd better figure out where you were sleeping tonight before it did. These people weren't scientists. They didn't have terminology for any of this, but they had something just as good. Pattern recognition built from a lifetime of paying attention and a deep, almost instinctual understanding that the world was constantly talking to them through color. You just had to know how to listen. The kid trailing at the back of the group was learning that language too. He just didn't know it yet. Every time he stopped to stare at the morning sky or the dew sitting on the grass like scattered glass, he was filing something away. Building a map, not of places, but of what color meant, what it promised, what it warned against, what it was trying to say. At some point that morning, one of the adults turned around and spotted him, standing completely still, head tilted back, watching a pair of birds cross the sky. The adult probably did what adults do when a kid is wasting time, made a sharp sound, waved him forward, kept moving. But the kid took one more second. Just one. Because the birds were gone, and the sky behind them was doing something he hadn't quite seen before. A streak of gold cutting through what was left of the blue-gray morning. And some part of him, some part that didn't have language yet, knew it was worth one more second. At some point. Nobody knows exactly when, exactly where. Someone in a group like this did something that had never been done before. They took the colors they'd been reading their whole lives, and they put them somewhere that wouldn't disappear. Red from iron-rich earth, black from charcoal, yellow from clay. They ground it down, mixed it with animal fat or water, and pressed it into the walls of caves, onto stone, onto their own skin. The handprints at Sulawesi in Indonesia, dated to at least 45,000 years ago, are the oldest known paintings on Earth. And they're red. Not because red was the only option. Because red was the color that meant something. It was the color of blood, of fire, of berries ready to eat, of danger, of life, of everything worth paying attention to. Those first paintings weren't decoration. They weren't art in the gallery sense. They were memory. They were a way of saying, this color matters. Remember what it means. Think about what it actually took to do that. To grind down red earth, mix it into something you could apply to a wall, and then press your hand against stone in the darkness of a cave with nothing but firelight. That's not something you do casually. That's something you do because you're trying to hold on to something. The handprint says, I was here. I saw this. I want someone else. Maybe someone I'll never meet. Maybe a kid in my own group who keeps falling behind. To know that this color meant something to me. The same instinct that made the adults in that group read pale leaves and bright frogs was the instinct that made someone pick up a handful of red earth and press it against stone and say, "This is worth keeping." Here's the part that's kind of wild to think about. You do this every single day. Every time you slow down at a yellow light because something in you knows this is about to change. Every time you reach for the broccoli that's a darker, richer green and pass on the pale stuff without quite knowing why. Every time a red notification badge on your phone pulls your attention before your brain has even had time to decide to look. That's the same system, the same pattern recognition, the same deep-wired instinct that kept that kids group alive on the African savanna 40,000 years ago. It didn't get replaced by modern life. It got repurposed by it. Companies spend millions of dollars designing the exact shade of red for that notification badge because they know, on some level, you can't fully rationalize that red means pay attention. They didn't invent that. They just figured out how to borrow it from something much, much older. That kid who kept falling behind. The one the adults probably found a little annoying, a little too slow, a little too distracted by things that didn't seem to matter. Was doing something that turned out to matter enormously. He was learning to see. Not just to scan, not just to process, but to actually look at color as something worth understanding. There's a version of that kid in most people. The part that slows down when the sky does something weird. The part that notices when a room feels wrong before you can figure out why. And it turns out later that the light in there was off. Too yellow, too cold, something. The part that can't quite look away from a fire. You've been trained by modern life to treat most of that as distraction, as inefficiency, as the thing you push past to get to what actually matters. But that kid wasn't distracted. He was paying the most important kind of attention there is. And at some point, that understanding got pressed into cave walls and carried forward across 40,000 years so completely that it still shows up in how your eyes move around a room, in the way you feel something shift when a sunset hits that particular shade of orange, in the way certain colors feel like warnings and others feel like permission. The last time you stopped and actually looked at a color, not to use it, not to process it, not to decide anything about it. When was that? That kid in the back of the group stopped every few feet. You've got a whole life of color around you right now. Most of it, you're just reading on autopilot. But some of it, if you slow down long enough, if you give it one more second the way that kid did, is still talking.